אנו מכריזים בזאת
על TEDxBGU.
A number of years ago, my wife's purse got stolen. It wasn't really a purse, more like a bag. It had everything in it. And it had her mobile phone in it. I was sitting in my office, and my wife was suddenly calling from somebody else's phone. Her purse got stolen. Wait a minute, you had your mobile phone in it, right? I have an idea. I can call the mobile phone company, and they can tell us where the phone is and where the bag is, and then we can know where the thief is. And I rushed to do just that. My wife's bag has just been stolen, and her mobile phone was in it. I told the mobile phone company, "Can you give me the location of her phone?" "No," said the man from the mobile phone company. "We can't tell you that. It's against our privacy policy." So I said, "Maybe you can give her the location of her phone. I can give you her number." "It's her phone." "Sorry, we can't do that either. We have no way of knowing whether it's really her," said the man. "Please, you've got to help me. The bag was just stolen. Perhaps you have a supervisor?" So the supervisor was there. She was a calm and polite lady, and she was patiently explaining to me the privacy policy of the company. And while we were having this discussion, the thief was walking in the streets of Tel Aviv, and a discussion over our privacy was taking place. Basically, what she told me was that there was no way we would be able to get the bag back or to get the location of the phone unless we managed to come up with a court order. But we have no time to get a court order, I told him. And it's our privacy, and we ask for it to be violated. The woman was decisive and somewhat shocked at my disrespect for privacy. So I thought I'd call the police. I called the police. I told them quickly what happened. I said, "There is a bag which was just stolen, and there's a mobile phone in it. Can you please call partner, the mobile phone operator, and get the location of the phone from them?" "I'm sorry, sir, we can't do that," said the policeman. "The mobile phone was correct. We cannot get this information without a court order." Now I really lost it. There's a man walking in the streets with an electronic sign, "I am a thief," and you are the police. Don't you want to catch a thief? The policeman was quite irritated with me. "I'm surprised at you, sir," he said. "You are a lawyer. You must appreciate the value of privacy." And I realized that we are not going to get our bag back because our privacy mattered more than our belongings, and because the police was not going to take any risk with our privacy. But I actually realized something bigger. It was more than just the respect of privacy which was manifested there. The police was no longer sure what was more important, their duty to protect, to prevent crime, or their obligation to respect privacy. And the interaction that I requested between the police and a technology company, such as the mobile phone operator, made it even more complicated for them. So the bag was gone, and privacy prevailed. Privacy was not always treated as such a dominant civil liberty. It started to be recognized as such in the 20th century, and recent years have seen it becoming a major liberty. A liberty which was reflected in a lot of legislation and actually influenced the way we were interpreting and reading many other laws and screening other rights and obligations of people in society. And I believe this has a strong tie to what is happening in the cyberspace. There are numerous academic discussions and articles about the connections and the tension between what is happening in the cyberspace and privacy. You see, privacy is no longer safe in the cyberspace, but privacy itself poses a risk to other liberties, one's property, one's well-being, sometimes even one's actual life. In November of 2015, the police in Paris, France, had information about a terror attack which was planned to take place. And they actually even had information about who were the suspected individuals which were intending to launch this attack. They tried to access the messages and failed. These terrorists were using a highly advanced encrypted messaging system called Telegram. So the police contacted Telegram and asked them to assist them in accessing the messages of those individuals, and Telegram refused. They were not ready to assist the police at the price of their customers' privacy. So the customers were advancing in the streets of Paris, advancing each other to the Bataclan nightclub, succeeded in launching the attack, and left 130 people dead. There was anguish and anger all over the world. But there was no real note of Telegram's refusal to assist the French police, which tried to prevent it. A few months earlier, in a testimony before Congress in June of 2015, the FBI director actually warned, uncrackable encryption is allowing terrorists to communicate about their criminal intentions without fear of outside intrusion. They're thwarting the efforts of law enforcement to detect, prevent, and investigate illegal activities. And indeed, a few months later, in America, Apple refused to give the FBI a back door into the iPhone messaging system. The FBI could not detect messages that were exchanged between the couple that launched the attack in San Bernardino, California, and left 14 people dead. Apple also claimed that they owe privacy protection to their customers. Again, there was no real outcry against this stance by Apple. In fact, I think that most people felt it was all right. Private companies were not required to cooperate with the police at the price of their customers' privacy. And there we were witnessing, perhaps in an extreme way, the very same phenomena that I experienced in my wife's bag story. The police was weak. It had to rely on technology companies. Technology companies felt that privacy mattered more than anything else, and therefore refused to assist the police in defending from actual, in this case, even murderous crimes. But there is a paradox. While defending our privacy became a major obstacle in protecting our safety, our privacy itself in the cyberspace was more violated than ever, perhaps, by criminals and also by non-criminals. Let me explain. For 30 years or so, we were placing our private information in the cyberspace. We place things which are very private. Who we are, where we are, how we look, what our opinions are, what our credit card number is, private messages. We put it all willingly in the cyberspace. And we gradually realized that it has been used, it has been exploited, sometimes by the very custodians with whom we deposited this private information. So we became pretty irritated and angry, and we demanded of them not to dare using it without getting our consent. But while commercial companies used our private information just to make money, somewhat legitimate money, cyber criminals were using our private information in order to commit crime over the web. They were using our identity in order to access our bank accounts. They were taking hold of our private information and tried to blackmail us. Sometimes they placed ransomware into our private computers and threatened to shut it down or to shut down the whole system unless we pay them. And sometimes they just put viruses and malware and worms and what have you, just in order to show us that they can. And so many of us, actually all of us, became victims of small and large cybercrimes in horrific volumes, all over the web, all over the world. And here was the paradox. While we were willingly risking our privacy in the cyberspace, and while we were all victims of cybercrime by now, We were determined not to let anyone access our privacy in order to defend us. We were suspicious. We were unsecure. And private companies sensed it and developed solutions in order to answer this need. They suggested ways to prevent, defend, and mainly detect cyber threats and cybercrime. And a whole new sector appeared before our eyes. It was called cybersecurity. And cybersecurity companies popped up like mushrooms after the cybercrime rain. But these companies did not offer ways to catch the criminals, only to defend against these crimes. Catching the criminals was not their task, it was the government's task. Crimes are committed by criminals, and criminals are supposed to be caught by the police. But there was a problem. The police had not yet developed effective ways to deal with these new forms of crimes and with these new types of criminals. You see, the police is an organization as old as crime is. It has a huge experience in dealing with criminals, but with slightly different kind of criminals. Street smart, but not well educated. Violent, perhaps, but easily manipulated. Criminals who hang around other criminals and would give each other up for the right pay or under the right pressure. And suddenly a new breed of criminals emerged. Criminals who were loners, who were bright, who had unprecedented means to disguise their true identity. And the forms of cybercrimes also changed much faster than the police could address. The police is a large organization, and it takes time for it to recruit new kind of policemen and develop new investigation techniques and acquire new technologies and learn how to deploy them. And all this could not be done in time to address the pace and the speed of cybercrime. And almost all cybercrimes are committed multinationally or even non-nationally in the cyberspace. And for the police, it's pretty hard to reach a criminal and put its hand on it when it's away from its jurisdiction. It required new kinds of international cooperation. And I need not mention my own profession. Laws needed to be revised, and laws take years to be enacted. International treaties take longer. New rules of evidence need to be developed and deployed in order to bring these new crimes to justice. The crimes are not really new. It's the same old story. It's stealing, it's forgery, it's extortion, but their forms are different, and the ways to prove them in court was different. And I'm afraid justice systems are even slower than police to address changes. So they just left us citizens unprotected, without an effective police and without an effective law enforcement. And the cybersecurity industry became our private police. We were suddenly faced with a new privatized service we never asked for. We can call them the private cybersecurity forces. And as the police had to rely on these new cybersecurity forces in order to do its job, they learned to abide by their rules. One of which was, beware with accessing the privacy of your customers. And so the police was tamed to prefer our privacy over our right and their duty to prevent crime. And this was probably why the policeman on the other side of the line, in my wife's bag story, was reluctant to call the mobile phone operator and gave up on an opportunity to catch a thief. Perhaps it's okay. Perhaps privacy does matter more than catching criminals, especially cyber criminals. Perhaps a private cybersecurity force is better than the old-fashioned, traditional state police. I don't think so. I think that privatized police and privacy prevail are leading us as a society to compromise on our basic rights. We give up on our right as citizens to be protected by our respective governments, and more painfully, we give up on our hope to catch criminals and bring them to justice. And we started to accept cybercrime as a problem which cannot be cured and must be contained. And this is not right. and we made the right for privacy a good reason, or perhaps an excuse, to give up on our right to catch criminals and bring them to justice. And this is not right. Now, what to do? One way is to accept the situation. Bless the hidden hand of the market. Admire the cybersecurity industry which managed to develop those means to address cybercrime. Perhaps invest in them even. Another way is to complain, like I do. The two can be complementary, you can do both. And the third option is to try and look at what the future will bring with it. I do not wish to underestimate the ambition and ingenuity of criminal minds, but I do believe that artificial intelligence will prevail over it. I think that what is commonly called blockchain offers a direction. I think that instead of looking for ways in order to remove anonymity, in order to require every user in the web to identify himself, blockchain machines, encrypted machines, can actually require every user in the web to get electronic authentication, to get a sort of a certification in order to allow him to do anything over the web. And I think with this era, we will see the size and volume of cybercrime reducing significantly. And perhaps by that time, we will be more relaxed with our privacy and will be ready to let the defenders use our privacy in order to defend us. There is something which doesn't make sense in the fact that our attackers are accessing our privacy all the time and our defenders are so reluctant to use it. I think we're in an intermediate phase. We're a little bit like people in a small town in the Wild West in the early 1800s. Robbers are storming the town from time to time, rob the bank as they please, and vanish. The sheriff is spending his days on the porch, probably smoking cigarettes, his legs up on the rail. There is no solution to crime, except maybe the Gary Coopers or the John Waynes of the world. In later years, this is all due to become a queer, perhaps romantic memory of an unsafe, wild past. And in some years, we may be looking at our times with the same degree of amazement and amusement. Thank you.